The monitoring station floated alone in the darkness of space. It was called Last Watch, and the name fit perfectly. Beyond this point, there was nothing but empty void and dangerous starfields. Captain Taman stood at the main console, staring at screens that showed the same thing they always showed. Nothing. He had been stationed here for 3 years. 3 long, boring years of watching blank screens and waiting for something that would probably never come. The other stations had more crew, more activity, more purpose. Last Watch had only 12 people, and most days, they barely spoke to each other. Taman rubbed his tired eyes. His shift would end in 2 hours, and then he could sleep. Maybe tomorrow would be different. Probably not. The console beeped. It was a soft sound, almost polite. Taman looked at the screen. Probably just space dust or a small asteroid. The sensors picked up everything out here, even things that did not matter. The beep came again, this time louder. Taman leaned forward. The screen showed something new. A signal. An actual signal coming from deep space, from a direction where nothing should exist. His heart began to beat faster. "Hana," he called out. "Get over here." Dr. Hana looked up from her desk across the room. She was the station's communication expert, the person who understood languages and codes better than anyone. She walked over quickly, her long black hair tied back in a practical bun. "What is it?" she asked. "A signal. I think it's a distress call." Hana's eyes widened. She pushed him aside gently and began typing commands into the console. Numbers and waves filled the screen. She put on her headset and listened carefully. "It's definitely a distress signal," she said quietly. "And it's not human." Taman felt a chill run down his spine. Humanity had been quiet for 300 years. After the Great War that almost destroyed them, humans had retreated to the outer veil. They built their stations and their colonies in the dangerous edges of space, away from everyone else. The galaxy thought humans were gone, maybe even dead. That was fine with most humans. They wanted to be left alone. But now someone was calling for help. "Can you translate it?" Taman asked. Hana nodded, her fingers moving fast across the keyboard. "It's in Galactic Standard. Old version, but I can understand it. Give me a minute." The rest of the station crew gathered around. Minho, the youngest pilot, stood close to the console. He was only 22, eager and restless. He had joined the service hoping to see action, but Last Watch offered none. "Is it really aliens?" Minho asked, excitement in his voice. "Quiet," Hana said sharply. She was concentrating hard, her eyes closed as she listened to the message through her headset. The room fell silent except for the soft hum of the station's life support systems. After what felt like forever, Hana opened her eyes. Her face was pale. "It's from the Velen Coalition," she said. "They're a peaceful species, plant-based biology, never caused trouble with anyone." She paused. "They're being attacked. Something called the Krator Swarm is destroying their worlds one by one. They've sent distress calls to everyone in the galaxy, but no one is answering." "Why not?" Minho asked. "Because no one wants to fight the Krator," Hana replied. "They're brutal. They take over worlds and kill everything that resists. Most species just hide and hope the Krator goes somewhere else." Taman looked at the screen. The signal was weak, coming from very far away. The Velens were dying, and they were calling for help that would probably never come. "What does the message say exactly?" he asked. Hana took a breath. "It says, 'This is Velen Prime. Our shields are failing. We have women and children in our shelters. We have done nothing to deserve this death. To anyone who can hear this, we die with honor, but our children deserve to live. Please. We are begging you." The room stayed quiet. Taman felt something twist in his chest. He thought about his own daughter back on Earth. She was 7 years old, with bright eyes and a loud laugh. He thought about her hiding in a shelter while monsters attacked from the sky. "How long do they have?" he asked. Hana checked the data. Based on the signal timestamp and their shield degradation rate, maybe 3 or 4 days. Possibly less. "Can we help them?" Minho asked. "We have ships. We could—" "No," Taman interrupted. We have patrol ships, not warships. 12 people can't fight an army. And protocol says we don't get involved in galactic conflicts. That's been the rule for 300 years. So we just let them die? Minho's voice was angry now. We just watch? We follow protocol, Taman said, but his voice sounded hollow even to himself. He looked at the screen again. The distress signal kept playing, over and over, a desperate cry into the darkness. He thought about the choice humanity had made 300 years ago. They chose isolation. They chose safety. They chose to forget about everyone else and focus on their own survival. But that choice had come with a cost. Humans had become ghosts, hiding in the shadows of space. Was that who they wanted to be forever? Taman made his decision. Hana, record everything. Every detail about this message, the coordinates, the timeline. Make a complete report. What are you going to do? She asked. I'm sending this to Earth, to High Command. The crew stared at him. Sending unauthorized messages to High Command was a serious violation. Taman could lose his command, maybe even face military court. Sir, one of the other officers said carefully. That could end your career. I know, Taman said. But I didn't join the service to watch innocent people die while I could have done something. Even if that something is just forwarding a message. He sat down at his command terminal and began typing. He wrote a simple message to Admiral Yuna, the supreme commander of all human forces. He had never met her, but everyone knew her reputation. She was a veteran of the old war, tough and fair. His message was short. Admiral, we received a distress call from an alien species facing extinction. They're calling for help. I know we have protocols about isolation, but I thought you should know that someone out there still believes we might answer. The children deserve to live. Attached is the full signal data. He hit send before he could change his mind. The message disappeared into the void, traveling at light speed toward Earth. It would take 6 hours to arrive. Then someone would read it. Then maybe, just maybe, someone would care. Minho put a hand on Taman's shoulder. You did the right thing, sir. Taman was not sure about that. But he knew he could not have done anything else. In the darkness of space, Last Watch continued its lonely vigil. The Velen distress call kept playing. And somewhere very far away, on a planet called Earth, an old admiral was about to read a message that would wake sleeping giants from their 300-year slumber. The Grand Assembly Hall in New Seoul was designed to impress. Its walls were made of smart glass that showed the stars beyond, making everyone inside feel like they were floating in space. Today, those walls showed Earth in all its beauty, blue and green and alive. Admiral Yuna stood at the center of the hall, her hands clasped behind her back. She was 70 years old, but she stood straight as a young soldier. Scars crossed her face and neck, souvenirs from the war that had ended 300 years ago. She had been in cryosleep for most of those years, waking only when duty called. Around her, the Human Coalition Council sat in a half-circle. 50 representatives from every major colony and settlement. They were arguing, as they always did. Chancellor Jinwoo raised his hand for silence. He was a thin man with gray hair and worry lines around his eyes. He had been elected because people trusted him to keep humanity safe. That meant avoiding war at all costs. Admiral Yuna, he said formally, you brought us here with an urgent request. Please explain the situation. Yuna activated the holographic display. The Velen distress signal began to play. The translation scrolled across the air in glowing letters. The council members listened in silence. When it finished, Jinwoo spoke again. This is tragic, truly tragic. But I fail to see how this concerns us. We have maintained our isolation for 3 centuries. It has kept us safe. It has kept us alive. It has kept us hidden, Yuna corrected. There's a difference. Murmurs rippled through the council. General Kai-hyun, the head of military strategy, leaned forward. He was younger than Yuna but equally experienced. His eyes were sharp and calculating. The Krator swarm is a significant threat, Kyan said. Our intelligence suggests they have conquered 14 systems in the past 2 years. They're expanding fast. If we do nothing now, eventually they will find us. Eventually is not today, one council member argued. "We cannot risk our people for aliens we have never met." "The Velans are peaceful," Yuna said. "They never hurt anyone. They're dying because they refuse to become killers. Does that mean nothing to us?" Jinwoo stood up. "Admiral, I respect your service. Everyone here does. But you are asking us to break 300 years of policy. You are asking us to reveal ourselves to the galaxy. You are asking us to go to war. I'm asking us to help children who are about to die." The hall fell silent. Yuna pulled up another hologram, this one showing images that Hana had extracted from the Velan signal. They showed Velan cities burning. They showed crowds of civilians huddling in shelters. They showed the faces of Velan children, their large eyes filled with terror. "When we retreated to the outer veil," Yuna said quietly, "we made a promise. We said that humanity would never again stand by while innocents burned. We said that the old ways, the ways that led to our own near extinction, were finished. We said we were better than that." "Words are cheap, Admiral," Jinwoo replied. "The safety of our people is not." Yuna smiled, and it was not a kind smile. "Then let me tell you something that very few people know. Something that might change your calculation." She entered a code into the holographic display. A new image appeared. It showed a fleet of ships, thousands of them, floating in the darkness of deep space. They were massive warships, each one bristling with weapons. They were dark and silent, almost invisible against the void. The council erupted in shock and confusion. "What is this?" Jinwoo demanded. "The Ghost Fleet," Yuna said calmly. 1,200 warships placed in dark matter camouflage 300 years ago. They've been waiting in cryosleep all this time, ready to wake when humanity needed them. Ki-hyun was on his feet now, his face red with anger. "How did we not know about this?" "Because it was designed that way," Yuna replied. "The Ghost Fleet was created by the last generation of the Old War. They knew humanity needed time to heal. But they also knew that peace only lasts when good people have the strength to defend it. So they built this fleet and hid it away. A dozen people kept the secret, passing it down through the generations. Now I'm one of them." Jinwoo looked like he had been struck. 1,200 warships. That's enough to challenge any power in the galaxy. "Yes. And you want to wake them up. You want to send them to war." "I want to send them to save lives," Yuna corrected. "There's a difference." The council argued for hours. Some members insisted that humanity should stay hidden. Others said that the Ghost Fleet changed everything, that humanity could finally stand as equals in the galaxy. A few said that helping the Velans was the morally right thing to do, regardless of strategic concerns. Jinwoo listened to everyone. He looked tired and old. Finally, he called for a vote. "All in favor of authorizing military action to assist the Velan coalition, raise your hand." The vote was close. 26 in favor, 24 against. Jinwoo closed his eyes for a moment. Then he opened them and looked at Yuna. "The motion passes. But I want limitations, Admiral. We don't reveal the entire Ghost Fleet. We send a task force, something that can handle the Crater but won't expose our full strength." "Agreed," Yuna said. 200 ships, Task Force Revenant. It will be enough." "And if it isn't," Jinwoo asked, "then we send more." Ki-hyun stood up. "I'll begin the awakening protocols immediately. How long will it take?" 18 hours for the crew to wake up and get combat ready," Yuna said. "Another 6 hours to bring the ships to full power. We can be in Velan space in 3 days." "The Velans might not have 3 days," a council member pointed out. "Then we'll have to move faster." The meeting ended. The council members filed out, still arguing among themselves. Jinwoo approached Yuna privately. "I hope you know what you're doing," he said quietly. "So do I, Chancellor. If this goes wrong, if we lose those ships, if the galaxy turns against us, then I'll take full responsibility," Yuna interrupted. "But if we do nothing and those children die, we all share that responsibility. I'd rather die fighting than live as a coward." Jinwoo nodded slowly. "There was a time when I thought like you. Maybe I still do. Just be careful, Admiral. The galaxy is not the same place we left 300 years ago." "Neither are we," Yuna replied. She left the hall and went directly to the military command center. Ki-hyun was already there, working at multiple terminals at once. The awakening protocols were complex and required perfect timing. "We're initiating the wake sequence," Ki-hyun reported. "The first cryo bays will activate in 16 hours. The crews will be disoriented at first. They went to sleep thinking the war was ending. They'll wake up and discover 300 years have passed." "They're soldiers," Yuna said. "They'll adapt." "I hope you're right." Yuna looked at the screen showing the Ghost Fleet. Each ship represented hundreds of lives, people who had volunteered to sleep through the centuries, waiting for the day when humanity might need them again. They were heroes from another age, about to wake into a world they would not recognize. But war, Yuna knew, never really changed. The technology might be different. The enemies might have different names. But the basic truth remained the same. Sometimes good people had to fight, or evil would win by default. She thought about the Velen children hiding in their shelters. She thought about her own grandchildren, who would grow up in a galaxy that was either safe or consumed by darkness. "Send the activation codes," she ordered. "Wake them up." Ki-hyun entered the final command. Far away, in the depths of space, 1,200 warships began to stir. Systems that had been dormant for 3 centuries came back to life. Cryobays started warming up. And inside those bays, thousands of soldiers began their slow return to consciousness. The Ghost Fleet was waking up, and the galaxy was about to remember why humans were called Deathworlders. Commander Doyen opened his eyes and saw white. Everything was white and cold and quiet. His body felt strange, like it belonged to someone else. He tried to move his fingers. They responded slowly, stiffly. A voice spoke nearby. It was calm and mechanical. "Cryo-sleep cycle complete. Neural functions returning to normal. Please remain still while the system completes its checks." Doyen's memory came back in pieces. He remembered the war, the endless battles against enemies whose names he had forgotten. He remembered volunteering for the Ghost Fleet program. He remembered saying goodbye to his younger brother, who had cried and begged him not to go. "How long?" Doyen asked. His voice was rough and painful. "Please remain still while the system completes its checks," the voice repeated. Doyen ignored it and sat up. His muscles screamed in protest. Around him, other cryobay pods were opening. His crew was waking up. 200 ships worth of soldiers, pilots, engineers, and officers. They had all gone to sleep on the same day, believing they might never wake up. A medic appeared beside his pod. She looked young. Too young to remember the war. "Commander, please lie back down. The revival process isn't complete." "I'm fine," Doyen said, though he was not fine at all. "How long were we asleep?" The medic hesitated. 300 years, sir." Doyen stared at her. 300 years. Everyone he had known was dead. His brother was dead. His friends were dead. The world he remembered was gone. Only the Ghost Fleet remained, preserved in the darkness like ancient relics. He looked around the medical bay. Other crew members were sitting up in their pods, looking confused and lost. Some were crying. Others just stared at nothing, trying to process what they had been told. Lieutenant Sora walked over. She moved stiffly but with determination. Sora had been his tactical officer during the war. She was brilliant with strategy but terrible with people. Doyen was glad to see her. "Report," he said, falling back on military routine. "All 200 ships are awakening on schedule," Sora replied. "Crew revival is at 70% completion. No major complications so far. The ships themselves are in perfect condition. The dark matter camouflage kept them hidden and protected all this time." "Why are we awake?" Doyen asked. "What's happened?" Sora pulled out a data tablet and handed it to him. "This will explain everything." Doyen read the briefing. The Velen Coalition. The Krator Swarm. The distress signal. The decision to wake Task Force Revenant and send them to fight. He looked up at Sora. "We're going to war again?" "Yes, sir." Doyen felt something cold settle in his chest. He had hoped never to fight again. He had volunteered for the Ghost Fleet because someone needed to be ready, but he had secretly hoped no one would ever need to wake them. "What do we know about the crater?" he asked. "Not much," Sora admitted. "They appeared about 50 years ago. Highly aggressive. They use swarm tactics. overwhelming their enemies with numbers. Their technology is advanced but not sophisticated. They rely on brute force. And the Velans? Peaceful plant-based species. They have decent shields but almost no weapons. They never developed a military because they never needed one. Doyen stood up, ignoring the protest from his legs. He needed to see his ship. He needed to know if the old war machine was still ready to fight. The corridor outside the medical bay was filled with crew members stumbling toward their stations. They all looked dazed and confused. Doyen recognized faces he had not seen in what felt like days, but was actually centuries. "Attention!" he called out. His voice echoed through the corridor. Everyone stopped and looked at him. "I know this is difficult," Doyen said. "We went to sleep in one world and woke up in another. Everyone we knew is gone. But our mission remains the same. We are the Ghost Fleet. We exist to protect those who cannot protect themselves. 300 years ago, we failed that mission. We let the galaxy burn while we focused on our own survival. Today, we have a chance to do better." He paused, looking at each face. These were good people, brave people. They had sacrificed everything for this moment. "The Velans are dying," Doyen continued. "They have children hiding in shelters waiting for death. We can save them. That's why we're awake. That's why we're here. So get to your stations. Power up your systems. Remember your training. We have work to do." The crew responded with nods and quiet acknowledgments. They moved faster now, with purpose. Military routine was good for moments like this. It gave structure to chaos. Doyen made his way to the bridge of his ship, the Eternal Vigil. It was a dreadnought-class vessel, designed for heavy combat. Every system was designed for one purpose: overwhelming firepower. Engineer Hune was already on the bridge, running diagnostics. He was a short man with quick hands and a brilliant mind for machinery. He looked up when Doyen entered. "Commander," Hune said with a tired smile, "welcome back to the living. Status report." "All systems are operational," Hyun replied. "Main weapons are charging, shields are at full power, engines are ready. It's like we never left." Doyen sat in the command chair. It felt familiar and strange at the same time. Around him, the bridge crew took their positions. They moved with the practiced efficiency of veterans. Sora stood at the tactical station. "All ships in Task Force Revenant are reporting ready status. We can jump to hyperspace in 30 minutes. "What's our tactical situation?" Doyen asked. Sora brought up a holographic display. It showed the Velan system surrounded by crater ships. The crater fleet consists of approximately 1,000 vessels. They outnumber us 5-1. However, our ships are significantly more advanced. Human military technology was always ahead of galactic standards, and we've had 300 years of preserved research. What about their tactics? Standard swarm doctrine. They cluster together and overwhelm with massed fire. It's effective against most species but vulnerable to coordinated strikes. Doyen studied the display. The Krator were making a classic mistake. They assumed numbers would win the day. They had probably never faced an enemy that could match their firepower. "Broadcast to all ships," Doyen ordered. "This is Commander Doyen. We jump to the Velan system in 25 minutes. Our mission is simple: save lives and eliminate the threat. The Krator have never fought humans before. They don't know what we're capable of. Let's show them why the galaxy used to fear us." The crew worked quickly, making final preparations. Doyen felt the old, familiar tension building in his chest. It was the feeling before battle, the moment when everything hung in the balance. He thought about the Velan children hiding in their shelters. He thought about his own brother, dead for 300 years. He thought about all the people who could not fight for themselves, who needed someone else to stand in the gap. "All ships report ready, sir," Sora announced. Doyen took a deep breath. "Begin jump sequence. Take us to war." The Eternal Vigil's engines powered up with a deep thrumming sound. Around it, 200 other warships did the same. Space itself seemed to bend and twist. The Ghost Fleet had been sleeping for 300 years. But now they were awake, and they remembered how to fight. Reality tore open in front of them, revealing the swirling tunnel of hyperspace. One by one, the ships of Task Force Revenant jumped forward, leaving the Abyss Station dark and empty once more. They were heading toward Velen Prime, toward battle, toward the moment when the galaxy would remember that humanity was not extinct. They were not gone. They were not weak. They were just sleeping. And now they were awake. Arya held her two children close as the building shook again. Dust fell from the ceiling. The emergency lights flickered. Around her, hundreds of other Velens crowded into the underground shelter, their faces showing the same terror she felt. Her daughter, only 5 years old, whispered a question. "Mama, when will it stop?" Arya did not have an answer. The crater had been attacking for 3 days straight. The planetary shields were at 8%. Maybe less now. Soon they would fail completely, and then the crater ships would rain fire on the cities below. She thought about the distress signals they had sent. Dozens of them, broadcast to every corner of the galaxy. No one had answered. No one was coming. The Velens would die alone, and the galaxy would forget they ever existed. Another explosion, closer this time. The children screamed. Arya closed her eyes and tried to be brave for them. Above the planet, Warlord Threxus watched the shields flicker and dim. He sat in his command throne on the bridge of his flagship, enjoying the sight. The Velens had fought longer than he expected, but the result was never in doubt. "Shields at 7%, his tactical officer reported. "They will fail within the hour." Threxus clicked his mandibles in satisfaction. The Krator were insectoid, with hard black shells and multiple limbs. They communicated through clicks and chemical signals. To them, other species were either food or obstacles. "When the shields fall, begin the ground assault," Threxus ordered. "I want their cities burned and their population reduced by half. The survivors will serve us." His bridge crew clicked their acknowledgement. Around his flagship, 1,000 crater vessels moved in perfect formation, forming a sphere around Velen Prime. It was beautiful in its simplicity. The prey was trapped. The kill was inevitable. Threxus began composing his victory broadcast. He would send it to every species in the sector. Another world conquered, another population enslaved. The Krator swarm was unstoppable. Then space tore open. At first, Threxus thought it was a sensor error. 200 massive shapes appeared from hyperspace in a perfect battle formation. They were arranged in a pattern he did not recognize, something called a hammer and anvil formation. "What are those ships?" he demanded. His tactical officer worked frantically at his console. "Unknown design, unknown signatures. They're not in any database. They're massive, Commander. Dreadnought-class vessels." "Hail them," Threxus ordered. "Demand identification." A moment later, a face appeared on the main screen. It was alien but familiar. 2 eyes, 2 arms, skin instead of shell. Threxus recognized the species from ancient historical files, humans. But that was impossible. Humans were extinct. Everyone knew that. The humans spoke. "Krator Fleet, this is Commander Doyen of the Human Coalition. You are attacking an innocent civilization. You have one chance. Withdraw now, and we will let you leave. Stay, and we will destroy you." Threxus laughed. It came out as a series of harsh clicks. "Humans? The galaxy said you were dead. You are outnumbered 5 to 1. You dare threaten me?" "I'm not threatening," Doyen replied calmly. "I'm promising. You have 30 seconds to begin your withdrawal." Threxus cut the communication. "All ships, attack pattern Omega. Destroy these arrogant fools." The Krator fleet turned as one. 1,000 ships moved toward the human fleet, weapons charging. It was their standard tactic, the swarm approach that had worked on every enemy they had faced. On the bridge of the Eternal Vigil, Doyen watched the Krator fleet advance. Beside him, Sora analyzed their formation. "They're clustering together," she reported. "Classic swarm tactics. They think numbers will overwhelm us." "They've never fought humans before," Doyen said. "They don't understand what we can do. All ships, execute attack pattern Reaper. Show them." The human fleet split into 5 groups. Each group moved with precision that seemed impossible for ships so large. They did not cluster. They did not crowd. Each vessel knew exactly where to be and what to do. The first wave of human ships opened fire. The weapons were not lasers or plasma beams like most galactic technology. They were kinetic railguns that fired solid projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. Each projectile hit with the force of a small nuclear weapon. The Krator shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, were useless against solid mass moving that fast. The first volley punched through 40 Krator ships. They exploded in brilliant flashes of light. Threxus stared in shock. How? How did they? Second wave incoming, his tactical officer screamed. The human ships launched torpedoes, but these were not ordinary torpedoes. They were smart weapons that could track targets through evasive maneuvers. They split apart into smaller warheads that could hit multiple ships at once. Another 60 Krator vessels died in the second wave. Return fire, Threxus roared. All weapons, fire. The Krator fleet unleashed everything they had. Energy beams and missiles filled the space between the two fleets. It was enough firepower to destroy a moon. The human ships activated their shields. These shields were different from Velen technology or Krator technology. They were layered, with multiple redundant systems. The Krator weapons hit the shields and scattered harmlessly. Shields holding at 94%, Hyun reported from his engineering station. Their weapons can't penetrate our defense. Doyen nodded. Launch fighters. Target their command ships. Bays opened on the human carriers. Small fighter craft poured out like angry insects. But unlike the slow, clumsy fighters most species used, these moved with impossible speed and agility. They were built for humans, who could tolerate extreme G-forces that would kill most aliens. The fighters tore through the Krator fleet like knives through paper. They targeted weak points, engine systems, and weapon arrays. Everywhere they went, Krator ships died. Below on Velen Prime, Arya felt the ground stop shaking. She looked up at the ceiling, confused. Had the Krator stopped their attack? Other Velens were checking their communication devices. Someone shouted in disbelief. Ships! Unknown ships are fighting the Krator! Everyone rushed to the screens showing the space battle above. Arya watched in amazement as the mysterious fleet systematically destroyed the Krator forces. The attack was beautiful in its precision. Every shot found its target. Every movement was perfect. Who are they? Someone asked. Does it matter? Another Velen replied. They're saving us. In space, the battle was already over. In less than 2 hours, the human fleet had destroyed 600 Krator ships. The remaining 400 were trying to flee, breaking formation and running in every direction. Should we pursue? Sora asked. Doyen shook his head. Let some escape. Let them spread the word about what happened here. Target the flagship. I want their commander alive. The Eternal Vigil's weapons locked onto Threxus's ship. A single precise shot disabled its engines without destroying it. The massive vessel went dark and began drifting. Boarding teams, go! Doyen ordered. Human Marines in powered armor flew across the space between ships. They cut through the hull and entered Threxus's flagship. The Krator warriors inside tried to fight back, but they were no match for human soldiers who had been trained in the cruelest war their species had ever known. Within 20 minutes, Threxus was captured and brought aboard the Eternal Vigil. He was thrown onto the bridge deck in front of Doyen. His armor was cracked, and one of his limbs hung uselessly. You, Threxus clicked weakly, you should be extinct. We were sleeping, Doyen replied. Now we're awake, and we're done watching bullies like you hurt innocent people. He turned to Sora. Send a message to all surviving Krator ships. Tell them what happened here today. Tell them that if they attack another peaceful species, the Ghost Fleet will come for them again. And next time, we won't let anyone escape. Sora nodded and began transmitting. Doyen looked at the view screen. Velen Prime floated below, battered but alive. The shields were holding now that the attack had stopped. He opened a communication channel to the planet. This is Commander Doyen of the Human Coalition. The Krator fleet has been destroyed. You're safe now. We're sending aid ships to help with rescue and repair. There was silence for a moment. Then a voice responded, shaky with emotion. Thank you, We thought no one would come. We thought we would die alone. You're not alone, Doyen said quietly. Not anymore. Around the planet, the Ghost Fleet took up defensive positions. Human ships began deploying medical teams and supplies. Down in the shelters, Velans emerged into the light, crying with relief and joy. Arya held her children as they stepped out onto the street. The sky above showed stars and the shapes of massive warships keeping watch. They were safe. Someone had answered their call. She looked up at those ships and whispered her thanks to the sleeping giants who had awakened to save them. The news spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Every species, every government, every independent colony heard the same impossible story. The humans were back, and they had destroyed the crater swarm in less than 3 hours. At first, many thought it was a hoax. Humans were extinct. Everyone knew that. They had disappeared 300 years ago after their terrible civil war. Their worlds had gone silent. Their ships had vanished. The galaxy had moved on without them, but the evidence was undeniable. Sensor readings from 100 different sources confirmed it. Video recordings showed the battle in detail. The crater survivors told their story with terror in their voices. The humans had returned, and they were more powerful than ever. On Velen Prime, human medical teams worked alongside Velen doctors to treat the wounded. Human engineers helped repair damaged buildings. Human soldiers distributed food and water to those who needed it. Arya watched them work with amazement. These humans were not the monsters some ancient stories described. They were gentle with children. They smiled and joked while working. They showed respect for Velen customs and culture. One human marine, a young woman with kind eyes, gave Arya's daughter a small stuffed toy from Earth. The little girl hugged it tightly and asked, "Why did you come? No one else did." The marine knelt down to the child's level. "Because someone had to," she said simply. "And we promised ourselves a long time ago that we would never let people suffer if we could help." Arya felt tears in her eyes. "We will never forget what you did for us." The marine smiled. "That's not necessary. Just live good lives. Raise your children well. That's all the thanks we need." Far above the planet, Commander Doyen sat in his ready room, reviewing reports. The battle had cost them 3 ships damaged and 47 crew members injured. No deaths. It was the best possible outcome given the circumstances. A communication request came through. It was from Admiral Yuna on Earth. "Commander," Yuna said when her face appeared on the screen. "Well done. The Council is pleased with your success." "Thank you, Admiral. But I should tell you, the entire galaxy knows about us now. There's no going back to isolation." "I know," Yuna replied. "And honestly, that might be for the best. We've been hiding for too long." Another face appeared on the screen beside Yuna. It was Chancellor Jinwoo. He looked tired, but resolute. "Commander Doyen," Jinwoo said, "I'm officially announcing humanity's return to galactic politics. We're requesting membership in the Galactic Assembly. We're offering our protection to any peaceful species that needs it, and we're making it clear that acts of aggression like the Crators will no longer be tolerated." Doyen nodded. "That's a bold stance, Chancellor. Some species won't appreciate it." "Let them try to stop us," Jinwoo said with a thin smile. "We have 1,200 warships. They have none that can match them." Over the next few weeks, the political situation in the galaxy shifted dramatically. Species that had been planning conquests suddenly found reasons to pursue peace instead. The Crator swarm retreated to their home systems and went silent. Pirates and raiders disappeared from the trade routes. The Galactic Assembly held an emergency session. Representatives from 200 species gathered to discuss the human question. Some were grateful. Others were fearful. A few were angry that humans had the audacity to return and immediately start dictating terms. Admiral Yuna attended the session personally. She walked into the assembly hall wearing her military uniform, her scars visible for everyone to see. The room fell silent as she approached the speaking platform. 300 years ago, Yuna began, humanity almost destroyed itself. We fought a war so terrible that it nearly ended our species. When it was over, we looked at what we had become, and we were ashamed. So we left. We retreated to the edges of space to heal and to change. She looked around the room, meeting the eyes of various delegates. While we were gone, we watched the galaxy. We saw species rise and fall. We saw wars and peace treaties. We saw acts of incredible kindness and terrible cruelty. And we learned something important. Isolation is not safety. Hiding from problems does not make them go away. A delegate from the Vraxian Empire stood up. The Vraxians were a warrior culture that had been expanding their territory aggressively. "Are you threatening us, human?" "No," Yuna replied. "I'm offering you a choice. You can continue your path of conquest, and eventually you will face the Ghost Fleet. Or you can choose peace, and we will help you prosper. We're not interested in controlling anyone. We're interested in protecting those who cannot protect themselves." "And if we refuse both options?" the Vraxian demanded. Yuna smiled coldly. "Then you'll learn the same lesson the Crater learned. We humans are very good at war. We've had a lot of practice, but we're tired of it. So we're offering something new. A galaxy where strength is used to protect, not to dominate." The assembly debated for hours. Some species welcomed humanity's return. The Velans, of course, supported them completely. Other peaceful species saw the humans as potential protectors. But the aggressive species were less enthusiastic. In the end, the assembly voted to accept humanity back into the galactic community with limited restrictions. Humans could trade, travel, and interact freely. The Ghost Fleet could operate as a peacekeeping force, but only in response to clear acts of aggression. It was not a perfect solution, but it was a start. Back on Velen Prime, a memorial was being constructed in the capital city. It was a tall monument made of crystal that caught the light and threw rainbows across the plaza. At its base, words were carved in both Velen and human languages. To the Deathworlders who answered. When darkness came and hope died, they woke from sleep and brought the dawn. We will remember. Arya brought her children to see it on the day it was unveiled. Thousands of Velens gathered for the ceremony. Commander Doyen and several human crew members attended as guests of honor. Arya's daughter looked up at the tall monument and asked, "Mama, what's a Deathworlder?" "That's what some species call humans," Arya explained. "They come from a planet that's very dangerous. Strong gravity, violent weather, deadly animals. Most species could never survive there, but humans did. It made them tough and strong." "Are they scary?" her son asked. Arya thought about the human marine who had given her daughter a toy. She thought about the engineers working long hours to repair their city. She thought about Commander Doyen, who had risked everything to save people he had never met. "No," she said gently. "They're not scary. They're the ones who come when you're scared. They're the ones who fight so others don't have to. They're heroes." On the Eternal Vigil, Doyen gathered his crew for an announcement. They assembled in the main hangar bay, hundreds of faces looking up at him expectantly. "I've received orders from High Command," Doyen said. "We're being given a choice. We can return to cryosleep and wait for the next crisis, or we can stay awake and help build the peace we fought for." He paused, looking at each face. "I'm staying," he said simply. 300 years ago, I went to sleep thinking the war was over. But peace isn't just the absence of war. It's something you have to build and maintain every single day. The galaxy needs protectors. It needs people who are willing to stand in the gap between innocent lives and those who would harm them. I want to be one of those people. One by one, hands went up across the hangar. Sora raised hers first. Then Hyun. Then Minho, who had transferred from Last Watch to join the Ghost Fleet. Within moments, every single crew member had volunteered to stay awake. "Then it's decided," Doyen said with a smile. "We'll wake the rest of the Ghost Fleet gradually. Not all at once, but as we need them. For now, Task Force Revenant will become the first official peacekeeping fleet. We'll patrol the trade routes, respond to distress calls, and remind everyone why violence against the innocent is a bad idea." The crew cheered. It was a sound of hope and purpose. Months passed. Human ships became a common sight in space lanes across the galaxy. They did not conquer or threaten. They simply watched and waited. When pirates attacked a merchant vessel, human ships appeared and drove them away. When natural disasters struck populated worlds, human aid arrived within hours. Slowly, the galaxy's fear began to turn into respect. Then something more. Trust. On a distant station called Last Watch, Captain Taman received a message from Admiral Yuna. It was short and simple. "Thank you for having the courage to forward that distress call. You saved an entire species and changed the course of galactic history. Well done." Taman read it 3 times, hardly believing it. He looked at Hana, who was smiling at him. "I guess following your conscience was the right choice," she said. "I guess so," Taman replied. In deep space, far from any star or planet, 1,000 ships of the Ghost Fleet continued their silent vigil. They waited in the darkness, ready to wake if they were needed. But for now, they slept peacefully, knowing that their comrades were building the peace they had all fought for. The galaxy had learned its lesson. The humans were back. They were not conquerors. They were not destroyers. They were something much more dangerous to those who preyed on the weak. They were protectors. They were guardians. They were the sleeping giants who would wake whenever darkness threatened to overcome the light. And the galaxy would never forget.